All this is Dr. Mobeen Sayed. Welcome to one more show. So today this is a little new setup. This is a new studio as well. My apologies if the audio is still not better, but I think it has become little better. So let's start a discussion, and we'll do more discussion in the chit chat. So the discussion is, I think many of you have actually heard of this news that there is a whistleblower from a company who worked there for a couple of weeks and was separated, was fired as a not a good fit for the company. And this company was working with FDA and Pfizer for the clinical trials for the Pfizer vaccine. And that person, that director, has come forward blowing whistle for the unethical work, incorrect, unclean data during the process of the vaccine trial, and uh, kind of ignoring the rules and regulations. And not only that, when that person reached out to FDA didn't really tell them much, and that person got fired as well, which tells me that this company, and most of the companies have NDAs, and most of the companies have non-disclosures, and most of the companies here in the US at least are at will engagement. So that means they can separate someone anytime they want, or somebody can leave the company anytime they want. So a company who says, hey, you're not a good fit, and separates them the day they call, that person calls FDA and says there are unethical or incorrect practices going on. I think that in itself is a problem with that company, and continuing to work with that company itself is a problem as well. And I would have thought that FDA would address this publicly and either say that, hey, this is not correct, or we are investigating, or we have investigated, we found no issues, or we found issues and now we are working with that company to rectify them or stop them or pause the company. Number one. Number two, I would have thought that Pfizer and or FDA would come back and say, here is the bad data. We are going to go and revise the trial data set, correct that, and come back. We still feel that this would be useful. This vaccine is great. It is valuable. Whatever they want to give as the feed to us, still, I think there would have been an interest in seeing how would they behave, because assuming this whistleblower's allegations are correct, and if there is no response, that means this might be happening even at a larger scale with the similar outcome. And that will be really bad if, especially, it is happening with the newer vaccines. And I make air quotations because yes, there are now discussions that is it a vaccine or it is not a vaccine. I actually consider these a vaccine because they train the immune system to produce a response when the future infection would occur. So they are not like drugs that would just do one time work and go away. So they are vaccines, but are there flaws? Are there gaps? Are there things that we do not know? Because as a public, when I back, let's say, Pfizer's vaccine or Moderna or others, I back based on the data that they are providing. And we're hoping that FDA or some other organizations, they are looking at that data. They're making sure that the data is correct. And then they're talking with us and saying, hey guys, we have looked at the data. We think it is safe, it is effective. Let's go use that. I can only imagine how much mainstream media went on this horse pill and horse paste, and how many Twitter warriors went on saying who is wrong, and the data was fraud, and the studies were fraud, and the studies were inconsistent. How about this? I don't see a single person talking about it. So anyways, that is my comment, that is my opinion. I am unhappy with this behavior, but let's start to see what that report is. And I have seen so many people already have covered this, and they have covered with various points. I'm actually going to go over the report with you so that we are kind of on the same page for what is in the report. So here, as usual, this is the reference to the BMJ's article. If you see here, this is an investigative report, and in this report is what we'll see the results. The In addition to this, there have been more reports as well. I usually do not cover or talk about them because I keep our talks more mechanism oriented, more medical concept oriented. But this is important because at the end of the day, these politics are also going to transpire in various ways to our health or towards our health. So this is it is an interesting article. Please read it. How Pfizer has been bullying governments for the vaccine contracts. This is the Citizen Responsible Care Research Organization. It is an organization that has been trying to make sure that things are done correctly. So they are participant in this whole discussion. This is the company Ventavia, which is in the center of all of this. This is the original trial for the Pfizer vaccine, in which Ventavia was one of the trial conducting organizations, a partner, a contracting company that was helping. Even after the issues that were raised, FDA still turned around and gave them access and work for more trials. So here are the more trials in which this company is working even after it was pointed out that the company's practices are not correct. And I feel that a company that disengages, separates a person because they raised an alarm for incorrect practices, which could cause health issues or which could cause danger to people, if that company, instead of saying, yeah, sure, let's listen to you and let's correct our practices, just separates them, has a problem with that company's own values as well. For such company to continue to work with them also is a problem. And again, because I do not know what reality is, I would have wished that there is an investigation started. So here is the phase another study, a phase 1-3 study to evaluate the safety, tolerability, and immunogenicity of an RNA vaccine candidate against COVID-19 in healthy children and young adults. So imagine now that this company that was not working very well or very ethically in the other pieces is also given the responsibility here, part of the responsibility. Then here is one more study, one more trial in which they're included, study to evaluate the safety, tolerability, immunogenicity of SARS-CoV-2 RNA vaccine candidate against, this is Pfizer, against COVID-19 in healthy pregnant women 18 years of age and older. So imagine that they are part of this as well. And then here, participants greater than or equal to 16 years of age. Here, immunogenicity and safety of RSV pre-F in adults. So another trial. Here is Pfizer's CEO's message that, hey, we are making sure that the vaccines are safe. Just to kind of contrast this all with what is actually happening, these are some letters that I would show as well. This is the letter from this organization to Scott Gottlieb, MD, who is, if you see here, FDA's commissioner, and Jerry Menikoff, MD/JD, Director, Office of Human Research Protections, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And here are some letters to them. Then here is another, this is an example. So these are references for how FDA actually does not follow up very well. So after the references, let's go to my, I don't have too many illustrations, but I have written some points, plus I'm going to present the data itself. So here is the report. I would like to go over the report with us. First of all, this is a summary. I believe it is such an effective summary. Speed may have come at the cost of data integrity and patient safety. And the request that I have is to contrast this to other drugs and other medicines and the stringent scrutiny and almost tainting them, even tainting them for their own normal function, just to prove a point. And here, there is something that may not be happening. It would have been so easy. If I was leading FDA, what would I do? I simply would go and see there is a problem and go public or go on the record and say, we have a partner who was not performing correctly. That part of the trial is removed. I would rescue it. Then I'll come back and I'll see if this is happening again and again. So anyways, let's see. The company falsified, check this out. The company falsified data. Falsified data? Have you heard lately how many other studies that this person falsified data and that person falsified data. And I see so many Twitter warriors who are going after the researchers and saying, send me your data. I think your data is not correct. And then saying your data is falsified. Here, company falsified data. There is nobody who responded to this. At least I do not know. And was so falsified data, unblinded patients, which is the worst thing you could do. If a center's patients have become unblinded and the bias has appeared, bias is that, let's say if we are conducting a trial here in this center, imagine my room is the center. If we're conducting a trial here, the doctor who is giving the medicine should not know we're doing a double blinded trial. The patient who is receiving the medicine should not know that is this a medicine or a placebo. So that's a double blinded trial. And then that data stays in the computer and to a set of people only, and it is not unblinded, it is not told to anyone, so that biases don't occur, so that unknowingly even leaning towards one or the other side does not occur. And here the data was unblinded, and we'll go over how it was unblinded. Then inadequately trained vaccinators, and you would see this theme again and again, that this company Ventavia did not have enough resources, and then FDA did not have enough resources. So let me ask you this: we are going through this pandemic now 20 months. The whole world is stuck in it. We are losing trillions of dollars. We are losing people's health. People are dying. There are psychological health issues, there are financial issues. Is there anything more emergent and more important for FDAs or for these organizations to do other than making sure that the vaccines or the solutions, whatever are the solutions, are put in place? The whole world is on this and they are focused on this work. For the pandemic to say the resources are not there is, I cannot even imagine. All money, all resources should have been focused on this. This should not even have been a point to say that they didn't have resources. Employed inadequately trained vaccinators and was slow to follow up on adverse events reported on Pfizer's pivotal phase 3 trial. And you would see a little forward that even the adverse reactions, which should have been taken care of within 20, every reaction should have been taken care of within 24 hours. Severe and adverse reactions, severe reactions even more so. And then there were examples of severe reactions not being followed up for 3 days. Staff who conducted quality control checks were overwhelmed by the volume of problems they were finding. So I can actually understand this, that this is a new drug, new vaccine, a new therapy, and they do not know what kind of side effects they might be encountering. So it is possible that there is a lot of side effects. Plus, people who are receiving it, they also do not know what are they going to get and what is to expect and what not to expect. So there may be people who would genuinely develop side effects and call in, and then there will be people who would become nervous and call in. And how is it possible that during a pandemic, while we have all of that at stake that I just discussed, we have people who are overwhelmed? That means we do not have enough resources and they are not enough trained or not ready. How is that even possible? And I keep in my head, I keep trying to balance it against how the whole country's machine, leaders, mainstream media leaders, organizations like FDAs and CDCs, how they went on a war for other drugs. They were very unified, they were very concerted. And here, there are issues going on and there are not enough resources. Anyways, after repeatedly notifying Ventavia of these problems, the regional director, Brooke Jackson, emailed a complaint to the US Food and Drug Administration. Ventavia fired her later the same day. This in itself, again, as I said before, it is all at will, but at the same time, it is very unethical that somebody is pointing out a gap that can be corrected and should be corrected. You just let the person go. Jackson has provided the BMJ with dozens of internal company documents, photo, audio recordings, and emails. So, this is the basic gist of it: poor data, falsified data, poor methods, poor lab conditions, poor resources, poor attention to the problems, unblinded data, and FDA was reported. They were told about this in September of 2020. So it is not that FDA is now finding out and saying, oh man, we did not know what the heck happened. They knew it. Poor lab management. I'm gonna I'm gonna move this page forward as well. This is actually the same thing. I'm finding it easier to just go through that document. So just same things over here. And one thing I really am surprised. I do not know if you are surprised or not, or maybe you are. Um, everybody is smart, so maybe you're smarter than I am. That you knew this would happen. Nobody responded. I kept Googling and trying to find out if someone has talked about it. So, other than folks like me, there is nobody who talked about it. This is no way to be pro vaccine, to just not talk about something that may be going on. Instead, if we really want to improve the quality of any therapy, including these vaccines, is to scrutinize them and keep refining them and keep taking care of the loose ends. Okay, so poor lab management. So when Ventavia says that they are privately owned, largest clinical research company in Texas. Jackson has told that BMJ that during 2 weeks she was employed, 2 weeks she was fired at Ventavia in September 2020, she repeatedly informed her superiors of, check this out, poor lab management, patient safety concerns, and data integrity issues. You know, this should have been just stopped here. Once this happened, just this much, and was reported, it should have been stopped. Jackson was a trained clinical trial auditor who previously held a director of operations position for 15 years. So now, what are the kind of issues that she was seeing? Needles discarded in a plastic biohazard bag instead of a sharps container box. But check this out, the next one. Another showed vaccine packaging material with trial participants' identification number written on them left out in the open. That can cause unblinding. Somebody, let's say, janitors come in or other folks come in and they are looking at the building, or they're just moving around, and here they see something in the trash bin or someplace. They can glance at it if it is sitting in the open um, view. They can become curious and pick it up and see it as well. But I hope that they would not pick up these things anyways. Then check this out. At Ventavia, Jackson told the BMJ that drug assignment confirmation printout. So let's say if I am one of the participants, there is a chart about me, my height, my age, my weight, my comorbidities, my temperature, vitals, everything. So there's a chart. And then as you administer the vaccine, you start monitoring and adding to that chart. This is a standard practice. In that chart was the information for the vaccine, which should not have been there. So, however, at Ventavia, Jackson told the BMJ that drug assignment confirmation printouts were being left in the participants' charts, accessible to blinded personas. So that makes it unblinded. They can pick it up and say, all right, here is Mobeen and here is what he got. Because the information is left in my chart, so they can look at my chart and know who I am, unblinded. As a corrective action taken in September, 2 months into trial recruitment and with around 1,000 participants already enrolled, quality assurance checklists were updated with instructions for the staff to remove these charts. Then look at this in a recording, so meeting recording. People are talking. And what are they saying? In my mind, it's something new every day. A Ventavia executive says, we know that it's significant, so problems. Ventavia was not keeping up with data entry queries. Check this one out. This is so bad. The unblinding was bad. You would actually see that falsifying data would appear as well in here. But check this one out. So there is another organization called ICON that is, you can say, overseeing Ventavia's work. And ICON, this paragraph is talking about ICON reminding Ventavia, saying that we think you are not doing it correctly. So check this out. Ventavia was not keeping up with data entry queries. Shows an email sent by ICON, the contrast research organization with which Pfizer partnered on the trial. ICON reminded Ventavia in a September 2020 email. So now this is ICON's email to Ventavia. The expectation for this study is that all queries are addressed within 24 hours. So Mubin got the vaccine. Mubin called in or did something, said, "Hey, I have a side effect. I have something. So I have fever or I have headache, and I'm concerned." And ICON is reminding Ventavia that, hey, when this happens, this query occurs, you have to respond within 24 hours. ICON then highlighted over 100 outstanding queries older than 3 days in yellow. Examples included two individuals for which subject has reported with severe symptoms and reactions. Then they were, of course, worried about the FDA inspection, which never happened. And here, check this out. Shortly after the trial began and before Jackson's hiring, so this is before the August hiring of Jackson, this is before, a Ventavia executive identified three site staff members. Check this out. Identified three staff members with whom to go over e-diary issue, falsifying data, etc. One of them was verbally counseled for changing data and not noting later late entry. Counsel for changing data. What was the counsel? Don't change data. They, changing data is not a good thing. So somebody who is doing it, don't you think that they felt empowered, enabled to do this? That must have been something to do with the company's culture. And the ones who were doing it, they thought, hey, it's okay, I can do that. At several points during the late September meeting, Jackson and the Ventavia executives discussed the possibility of the FDA showing up for an inspection. We are going to get some kind of letter of information at least when the FDA gets here. Know it. And then here is a quick discussion of how FDA has not been very vigilant. And they've given an example where there was a company that was not running the trial correctly, and the trial, and FDA was told that, hey, this trial is not going well. And FDA contacted them after the trial was over. So once again, big bureaucratic organizations, maybe they have gaps here and there. But for pandemic, what else? I mean, this is, you have one job, or you had one job, right? So Ventavia and the FDA, this is also very interesting. So check this out. Folks who are in the US, you know this, that when there is a allegation, normally the person who is saying it is not disclosed to the others so that there is no repercussions. Here this person goes to FDA. How did that company the same day separated her? So here, 25th September, Jackson called the FDA. So first she tried to talk with her company's folks. Then she called FDA. Then she sent them an email. So the next morning, 25th September 2020, Jackson called the FDA to warn about unsound practices in Pfizer's clinical trial at Ventavia. She then reported her concerns in an email to the agency. In the afternoon, Ventavia fired Jackson, deemed not a good fit. What was their good fit? Same day, these machineries. Remember, I used to say that it's not about bribes, it's more about influences. People are connected. And again, they are people from us. I mean, it's not that they are someone's from Mars. I'm not blaming them to say they are some other folks. They are part of us. This is us. Concerns raised in her 25 September email to the FDA. So check out, she says she sent in a dozen concerns, including some. So here are some. Participants placed in a hallway after injection and not being monitored by clinical staff. Remember, this is a trial. This is not a vaccine that has become authorized or become emergency use authorized or approved. And so there is an expectation of how it would work. This is a trial. So that means you really have to be vigilant to see what is going on with the participants. Participants placed in a hallway after injection and not being monitored by clinical staff. Lack of timely follow up of patients who experienced adverse events. Man, I would have hated to be in this center. Protocol deviations not being reported. So protocol deviation not being reported. And I keep seeing saying people saying this drug, this dose, it should have been this, was not this. And you know, the warriors out there who continue to talk about protocol deviations. Here, protocol deviation not being reported, vaccine not being stored at proper temperature. How is that possible? Why was this not excluded? Let's say FDA found it out too late. They should have said this site is excluded. They should have now made the people whole who got these vaccines. Some of them may have gotten them with incorrect vaccine um, safety because the temperature was not correct and may have been spoiled. Imagine the people who were going through this. Mislabeled lab specimens and targeting of Ventavia staff for reporting these type of problems. Within hours, so she reaches out, she calls them, she leaves them a message, sends them an email. Within hours, so she was let go the same day. Within hours, Jackson received an email from the FDA thanking her for her concerns and notifying her that the FDA could not comment on any investigation that might result. A few days later, Jackson received a call from an FDA inspector to discuss her report, but was told that no further information could be provided. She heard nothing further in relation to her report. So at least it tells us that they knew. In Pfizer's briefing document, so now this all is done. Trial center was not doing the best. A person identified the problems, reported them. A contact occurred with that person as well. Now comes the time to actually report the results. Look what is happening. In Pfizer's briefing document submitted to an FDA advisory committee, meeting held on 10 December, we talked about these things, right? 2020 to discuss Pfizer's application for emergency use authorization of its COVID 19 vaccine. The company made no mention of problems at the Ventavia sites. The next day, the FDA issued the authorization for the vaccine. Now, before you think that FDA was not even aware, we just talked about it over here. FDA was made aware. FDA contacted back as well. So it's not that they were not aware, they were aware. But Pfizer also just moved forward. I can imagine some phone calls happening, people, but that's just my thought. I may be wrong. Now, in August of this year, after the full approval of Pfizer's vaccine, remember this is now a fully approved vaccine. Somehow, with all of these things, all of these issues, Pfizer is still leading for everything. Pfizer for kids as well, now Pfizer with their drugs as well. In August this year, after the full approval of Pfizer's vaccine, the FDA published a summary of its inspection of the company's pivotal trial. Nine of the trial's 153 sites were inspected. Ventavia site were not listed. So I have two questions here. One, were these nine randomly selected? If these were randomly selected, then the one that was reported, why was that not selected by intention to say we should go and check it? Or the second question I have is, if these were not randomly selected, but instead they were selected because there was a problem going on there and they became aware of the problem and they went and looked into it, then were these nine sites worse than Ventavia? That is why Ventavia was left off. And if that was the case, then how many other sites were at par with Ventavia's behavior? The FDA's inspection officer noted the data integrity and verification portion of the BIMO, this bio research monitoring inspections, were limited because the study was ongoing and the data required for verification and comparison were not yet available to the IND, investigational new drug. So that's a very simple way to handle it. Just don't give the data. Say we don't have the data yet. So the party to offer the data says we're not ready yet. Party to receive the data says they didn't give me the data. Everything else looks good. When this data comes in, we'll respond. Here, the data actually, they must have had it. Then this is BMJ saying that, hey, it's not just that person. We then talked with others, employees anonymously as well, and we have verified much of it. The two former Ventavia employees spoke to the BMJ anonymously for fear of reprisal. Of course, they fired the other one, and loss of job prospects in the tightly knit research community. Both confirmed broad aspect of Jackson's complaint. One said that she had worked on over 4 dozen clinical trials in her career, including many. So look at this, but had never experienced such a helter-skelter work environment with the Ventavia and Pfizer's trial. So this all can be looked at from this lens as well, that hey, this whole thing was just going so fast and we needed the vaccine so fast. Everyone was just cutting the corners. But cutting the corners on a trial, everyone should have been focused on the trial. You cut the corner on other things. You decide what is the most prior thing, what is the most important thing that is happening. That would have been the trials of the vaccines. Because otherwise, we were not helping people. We were saying, stay home, take Tylenol. I don't think that the focus was needed on that part. Focus was needed here, but had never experienced such a helter-skelter work environment. I've never had to do what they were asking me to do ever, she told the BMJ. I just seemed like something a little different from normal, the things that were allowed and expected. Then they continue. After Jackson left the company, problems persisted at Ventavia, this employee said. In several cases, Ventavia lacked enough employees to swab all trial participants who reported COVID like symptoms to test for infection. So you tell me, let's say this all is innocent, or maybe not a big deal. Let's say, because there are, why mainstream media is not talking, or FDA is not talking, or the others are not talking. Maybe FDA is doing an investigation now. But let's say it is innocent. Even if it is innocent, is this innocent? That participants have COVID like symptoms and they are not tested? Maybe they were vaccinated and they still had the COVID like symptoms and they should have been counted towards people who had breakthrough infection. so we don't get surprised later on. Lab confirmed symptomatic COVID-19 was the trial's primary endpoint. So that was the endpoint as well. An FDA review memorandum released in August this year states that across the full trial, swabs were not taken from 477 people with suspected cases of symptomatic COVID-19. And again, if I was there, I would have said, we have a gap in our analysis. We need to go back and revise the data, correct the data, and then come back and say, are our findings still accurate? Number one. Number two, we have now given vaccine to tons of people. Let's take the efficacies from there and map them back here and see if there were gaps. And number three, we would have said, hey guys, this should not happen again. How much risk have we produced? And there should have been some response. Look at this. I don't think it was good, clean data. The employee said of the data Ventavia generated for the Pfizer trial. It's a crazy mess. A second employee also described an environment at Ventavia unlike any she had experienced in her 20 years doing research. She told the BMJ that shortly after Ventavia fired Jackson, Pfizer was notified of problems at Ventavia with the vaccine trial and that an audit took place. Now, check this out. Pfizer has hired Ventavia as a research subcontractor on 4 other vaccine clinical trials: COVID-19 vaccine in children and young adults, pregnant women, booster dose, as well as RSV vaccine. The advisory committee for the Center for Disease Control and Prevention is set to discuss the COVID-19 pediatric vaccine trial on 2nd November, and we know what happened there. I am actually speechless. For mistakes happen. We have a large scale of testing and trying. What I'm speechless is that the oversight was not correct, and then reporting of that was not correct, and then taking that into account was not there. So we were at stake. So on one end, look at the people, what was our situation? On one end, we are at risk from the COVID. On the other end, the therapies that are paid from our tax dollars are now not being that clean, and the people who are helping, who are working to help us, they are not really doing their job very well. So this is the discussion. I am actually surprised. Anyways, I'm gonna hang up now. I will come back in a few minutes. What we'll do is we'll do the chit chat and we'll have the same format. There are tons of questions from the previous request to solicit questions, so we'll answer some of those, and then we'll do some live questions as well. So please do me a favor. If you like this work, support it. There are links in the description. You can buy me a coffee, you can be a patron, or you can use PayPal. I would see you in a few minutes. The smallest thing that you can do and the easiest thing that you can do is to like this video. Thank you very much. See you soon.